Hello, my fellow readers of Dark Symphony 777 with another fan fiction review. As always, link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications. Leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story. And finally, listen to my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of the world, so please respect that. So, the story I'm doing a reading of is An Awkward Day by Rainbow Double Dash. This is actually a sequel to this story right here. You see it right here. God, I love FIM fiction setup. It's so much better than the other sites because it makes stuff like this easier. This is the only short story of season 2, and this one does follow up like sub. It's just honestly, okay. Honestly, if you saw my review of this, I never actually mentioned. No, I did mention what my favorite part is, but there was a second favorite part, and that's this story because this is technically connected to this because it stars Luna and Cadence. I'm kind of ragging too much, so let's just get into it. Right? Rome, the capital of Cavalia, was a port city located next to the Great Southern Sea, built along the hills and cliffs that rose from pristine beaches. The buildings of Rome were largely constructed of sun-bleached white stone, topped with tiled, sloping roofs. The city's most notable feature was its mighty aqueduct, bringing fresh water to the city from 100 miles away. The aqueduct's graceful curving structure wound through the city and was decorated with mosaics and stratocarved drawings and paintings of the myths and legends of the continent as a whole, and Cavalia in particular. The city's most second impressive feature, however, was where the aqueduct led out, the summer palace of Her Highness, Princess Miamor Cadenza, Axard of the Princess Luna. Perched on a high cliff that hung over the beach, it stood in marked contrast to Canterlot Castle by having few tall towers, instead of opting to sprawl widely across the land along to it. The palace's front garden was larger than some sections of Rome, and often open to the public to house fairs and other events of importance. The great aqueduct of Rome transformed itself into a stream that split into two to wind around the palace in the shape of a hawk. Before the two streams cascaded over the side of the cliff side and fell down to the ocean below, creating a nearly perpetual natural rainbow. Everywhere the purple and gold flag of the Princess Cadenza flew proudly alongside the most ancient white, red, and gold flag of Cavalli itself. If you're wondering, what about the Crystal Empire? One, Crystal Empire doesn't exist because Celestia nuked it. And two, Crystal Empire doesn't exist. Yeah. The princess's room, within one of the few tall towers the palace did possess, of course, had two balconies, one looking out to the sea and the other looking in towards the room. Cadenza sighed softly from her bedside as she looked out the latter window, where she saw the sun just beginning to creep over the horizon. 700 years of life, give or take a few decades, had put a significant distance between herself and her encounter with Corona, the tired sun. Though objectively she knew that bound within that burning ball of flame and magic was a mad alicorn who wished to reign supreme over the whole world. For the most part, especially this morning, she could ignore that, and instead focus only on the warm morning sun. She, like almost all of Cavalia, but unlike almost all in Questia, was not afraid of the sun. Besides, it was difficult to feel fear when one felt so complete. Cadenza felt a stirring next to her, and her smile widened as she leaned down, planting a gentle kiss on the lips of the stallion who was only just beginning to wake up. His name was Sirocco, a sandy yellow Pegasus with a red mane and tail, and a cumulative mark of a desert twister. He had been, so was in fact, a musician and poet of no small skill. He had met Cadenza a year ago now, and the two had hit it off almost immediately, growing steadily more intimate until he had begun to appear behind her at official events, and she had sought him out for advice and counsel. She had come to trust him, to care for him deeply, to love him. But the most important moment of their relationship had come at last, when Cadenza had given him the talk. It was not the talk that parents give their foals, of course. Sirocco had, in private, read some of his less publicly acceptable sonnets to her, and had demonstrated quite an accurate understanding of pony physiology. No, this was the alicorn talk. Sirocco, she had said, when only the light in the room had been the fireplace. I have had 3 husbands and 1 wife. I love them all, completely, honestly. Each one has, when their time came, died, and it hurt me each time. And thinking back, it still hurts me still, because I still love him. But each time, I have moved on, recovered, and been capable of loving once more. And you must understand, the same will happen to you. I will endeavor to make our time together the best time of your life, the best time of mine. I will never leave you while you yet draw breath. I will love you forever, but I will not join you beyond the pale. After you are gone, though it may take me years, or decades, or even centuries, I know I will find love again. It would not be fair to you if you did not make you aware of this, and if you cannot bear it, I will understand. And she would have too. Cadenza had been married 4 times. She was no stranger to the occasional casual romp between the unmarried, which may have been all Sirocco had been asking. Further, for every one of her spouses who had made it through the talk, there's one who could not reconcile their mortality against her immortality. Sirocco had thought long and hard. Cadenza had waited patiently. Time, being something she had in abundance, was the whole reason for the talk in the first place. After all, eventually, he had looked to her. Would always be a space in her heart reserved only for me, he had asked. Always. Unto forever, Cadenza has promised. Sirocco had smiled at that, leaning forward. Then it would be selfish for me to demand any more. I cannot ask for all the years ahead of you, but I ask for the years yet remaining to me. Can you give me that? I will, Cadenza responded, leaning toward Sirocco herself. Their lips had touched them, not the reckless, wild kissing of animals running, but the kind of kiss that contained a secret and deep promise. A kiss of love. Love no less true for Cadenza, despite her having felt it before, and knowing that she would feel it again. They had spent the night together, entwined around each other, exploring each other as though for the first time, consummating their promise now far beyond what any mere legal ceremony could seek to emulate. Eventually they had fallen asleep, curled up next to each other, lulled to slumber, with the gentle sound of their own breathing and heartbeats. Sirocco was only slowly waking, returning, first on instinct, then under his own volition, the butterfly kisses that Cadenza was planting upon his lips. His eyes fluttered opened only once, to see Cadenza looking back at him, smiling, before they closed again, and the two simply lost themselves in each other's lips again. In time, their kissing ceased, and instead they simply laid next to each other. Cadenza's special talent, learned not long before her first love, Cardasol, had asked her to marry him, was love. Exemplified for the crystalline heart that was her cutie mark. She could recognize love, nurture it, help it grow, and blossom it herself and in others. Indeed, either through her cutie mark herself, or perhaps due to being an alicorn, she could feel it, deep in her own heart and within the hearts of others. Right now, in this moment, love was all she could feel, flowing from Sirocco to her and back again. It was pure bliss, and Cadenza was certain that there was nothing in the whole world that could possibly ruin this moment. Despite being 700 years old, she apparently only had a limited understanding of the fact of the universe listened for such thoughts, and took special delight in spoiling them. In this particular instance, spoiling came from a series of short but loud knocks on the door to Cadenza's room. Sirocco's eyes opened as he turned to look at the door. Cadenza did as well. She considered putting her arm on her head to use in removing her door, turning it into a solid wall instead. She had wings. Sirocco had wings. The room had 2 balconies, and Cadenza can teleport anyway. There was no actual need for a door from a strictly utilitarian standpoint. The knock repeated. Sirocco looked at Cadenza. Shouldn't you? He began. Cadenza glared hatred at the door. No, she said. No. The budget is balanced. The sentences are condensed. The border with Zaldi has been quiet for 10 years. It's a beautiful sunny day. There is nothing that could possibly require my attention. The door of Cadenza's room burst open. Breaking the locks, a quartet of ponies rushed in. 2 were Pegasus members of our honor guard, wearing purple and gold armor that was ornate, but no less functional for it. One dashed over to our oceanside balcony, closing the doors to it before doing the same to the other, while the other took up a guard position just inside the room. The remaining 2 ponies were her Prime Minister, Pepe Danza, and her Minister of War, Arcadio Salido. Both were her ponies, and both were looks of considerable worry, as her normally stoic honor guard. What are you doing? Cadenza demanded at the intrusion as she stood from her bed. Nobody had entered her room without her permission before, let alone burst through the lock. And the sheer audacity of it all overrode her concern at what could have caused such an invasion of privacy in the first place. I'm sorry, Your Majesty, but the matter is urgent. Pepe Danza. Oh God, Pepe. I'm gonna instinctively say Papa. Pepe Danza explained, as he and Zaccadio Saladio both bowed respectively. If either thought anything of Sirocco's presence, this is nothing. There are foreign troops massing on our border. Cadenza blinked. Well, that was urgent. It also made no sense. We are at peace with Zaldia, she said. King Azalba said he has no more interest in pursuing territorial claims. No, Your Majesty, the defense minister responded. Not on our border with Zaldia. Our northern border. Questria. Cadenza stared, eyes wide, as the words thrilled through her head. For the first time in her 700 years of life, she was treated with the novel experience mortals refer to as heart-stopping panic. She did not like it. That makes no sense, Cadenza said, stepping forward. You're certain? Absolutely, Majesty, Arcadio Saladio responded. We have panicked reports coming for the past hour. No Equestrian troops have yet crossed the border, but they are amassing a large force. Cadenza's mouth tried to work, but no sound came out. Equestria? War with Equestria? Invasion by Princess Luna? Had been prior to this moment inconceivable. Cadenza saw Luna every few years. The two talked and dined. They were friends. Cadenza even saw Luna as something of a mentor figure. Cavalli and Equestria, there was no history of hate, no precedents for conflict. The border, set up by the course of the River Brelia, had been agreed upon 15 years ago, before Cadenza even existed, and had never once been violated or argued over. Princess Luna would have gone mad in order to... Gone mad. Cadenza blinked a few times at the darkest thoughts she had ever crossed her mind, her body freezing in shock. Even her breathing ceasing for several moments. Gone mad? Like her sister had. Like Corona. Cadenza had seen no hint of madness within Luna when she had last seen her. But then Luna had seen nothing from her own sister either. Could it be that this madness was something that crept upon Aliquans? Would it happen to her too? There was no time, however, to consider such a thing. Cadenza looked at Sirocco, who was staring at her with confusion and concern. She had only known him for a year. They had only just consummated their love. Today was supposed to have been a day of peace and tranquility. A day where everything went right. Instead, it was all going horribly wrong. The princess looked back at her prime minister. I'm going to the border, she said. What, Papa? Pepe Danza demanded, though he was echoed by the other ponies in the room. Majesty, no! If this is a prelude to invasion. If it is a prelude to invasion, then Cavalli is lost, Cadenza responded, wings flaring. The equestrian military is second to none. I do no doubt the loyalty are true, but they are used to border skirmishes with the Zaldians, and those have all but ended years ago. Cavalli will not survive a war with Equestria, and there is a matter of why this has happened. It's possible that Princess Luna has fallen to the same menace that overtook her sister. If this is true, then I must act now. Arcadio Saladio and Pepe Danza looked at each other. Both were, of course, fiercely loyal citizens to Gallia, and rightfully proud of its long history. Cadenza could feel their love for the country flowing out of them. They did not want to admit that what Cadenza was saying was correct. But deep down, they knew that if Cavallia could emerge from the other side of the war with Equestria intact, it would not be in a state they could recognize. Cadenza looked at Sirocco, pausing only a moment before throwing herself forward, pressing her lips to his. His own wings flared in surprise, before he returned to kiss wholeheartedly. I was possibly the last Cadenza would ever receive. Please, Cadenza, he said softly. When they withdrew less than an inch, right there, from one of the both eyes still closed, return safely. I will, she promised, turning and heading to her balcony doors before opening her eyes again. If I return at all, she mentally appended. Her honor guard had tried to follow, of course, but that was simply not possible. For a Pegasus crossing from Rome to the equestrian border, specifically the great bridge that spanned the river Brasilia, was a trip of nearly a day of hard trying. Cadenza was not a Pegasus. Though she was far younger than Milna, she had nevertheless come into her home the past 7 centuries. She made the trip in 3 hours, and wasn't even breathing heavily when she landed on the Cavallian side of the Brasilian bridge. Cavallian troops had been rushed to the border from nearby towns already, though these were the reserves only, most of them having seen too many winters, or too few. Armor didn't fit, weapons were rusty, and held an unsure mouse or hooves of telekinetic grips, and fear was apparent. They gave a cheer when they saw their princess, but she hadn't touched earth for more than 10 seconds before they crowded around her, asking questions she couldn't answer, with no sense of military discipline, not knowing who was in charge of what should be done. Nobody had ever expected the need to defend the equestrian border. The army on the other side of the bridge, even now sitting up a forward camp, was different. It was twice the size, at least, of the Cavalian reserves. Its members were mares and stallions, who were all young and fit, clad in blue and silver armor. Their weapons were sharp, and their eyes sharp, and the discipline was apparent. Already there were equestrian pegasi flying over their skies, planning how best to strike and secure the bridge to allow their grounded comrades to cross. The equestrians tried to push across the border. They would not be held back. Thus far, there was not nearly enough troops to invade and occupy all of Cavalia. There was enough to make a decent stop. Cadenza separated herself from her citizens after reassuring them as best she could, and trotted halfway across the bridge, right up to a symbolic line painted across its length that denoted the border between Cavalia and Equestria. One of the few ponies wanted to follow, but she waved them back as she waited. After several moments, the equestrians sent an envoy of their own, the highest ranked pony, an Earth Pony captain, who crossed by himself on seeing that Cadenza was similarly unaccompanied. He was nearly as tall as Cadenza, with an off-white and chocolate-brown palomino coat and brown mane and tail. Princess Cadenza, the captain said, bowing respectfully. He was once an equestrian, of course, and Cadenza needed a moment to adjust her mind from her lyrical, flowing native tongue to the more guttural, halting equestrian language. It is an honor to meet you. I am Captain Pine Needle. Cadenza stared at him for several moments. Indeed, she said, in equestrian as well. Captain, while what the equestrian military does on equestrian soil is great, generally not of my concern, I must submit to a measure of curiosity as to why you and your ponies have decided to, whatever it is you're doing, so close to Cavalia. Pine Needle pressed his lips together. I apologize, he said, but I fear I cannot answer that question. I understand your hesitation, Captain, but I ask that you recall that I am not only the Princess Cavalia, but the exart of my Empress, your Princess, Luna. In the halls of my court, my power is equal to that of a viceroy. My will is subordinate only to that of Luna. The captain shifted uncomfortably at that, silent for several moments before steeling himself. Given the circumstances, Princess, you'll understand if I feel it's in best interest of Equestria if I do not acknowledge your exarchy. Instead, treat you as the sovereign head of a state that, for all intents and purposes, you are. Cadenza could not fault Pine Needle for that. She looked past him at the army. You look like you're preparing for an invasion, she noted. You looked back to Pine Needle. Cavalia is a peaceful land, Captain, unused to the scourge of war. We have been friends with Equestria for more than 1,000 years, longer than I have reigned. We have no desire for war, nothing to gain from one, and everything to lose. To his credit, Pine Needle did not point out that Equestria could crush Cavalia under a hoof if a war really was about to begin, and so what it desired was largely irrelevant. Instead, he grimaced, glancing past Cadenza and the stalwart and brave, but utterly unprepared Cavalian defenders. After a moment, he stepped closer to Cadenza. Princess, what I'm about to tell you must be held in the strictest confidence, he said quietly. My ponies were ordered to march to the border of Cavalia and secure it. No reason was given, but I have been ordered to prepare for a defensive war, not an invasion. Cadenza blinked rapidly at that. Cavalia would never evade Equestria, she hissed quietly. Princess, believe you. Pine Needle responded. Before we sailed forth, I was made aware of additional defenses with Zaldia, the Griffin Kingdoms, and Pisharek. The orders have been sent to the provincial lords and raised troops, 1,000,000 opponents immediately, with additional conscriptions to be anticipated. It is down to me as though Equestria is expected to defend itself, not attack. Cadenza scowled and confusing as Pine Needle withdrew from her, and she stepped back herself. Equestria, she intoned, is unchallenged in its hegemony over the continent. I know, Princess. I'm only a soldier, following my orders. Pine Needle stood up straighter. Princess, I promise you that, should war be declared, if I am ordered to invade Cavalia, I will conduct the war in as civil a manner as possible. Do everything I can to keep losses on both sides to a minimum. I will treat the citizens and land of Cavalia with the utmost respect. Cadenza glared at Pineapple. You will forgive me, Captain, if I do not feel much like thanking you for your considerations. The captain inclined his head in understanding. With your leave, he said, bowing, though he did not wait for actual permission before turning back across the bridge to his troops. Cadenza, meanwhile, mulled over the information she had acquired as she returned to the Cavalian side of the river. Nothing the captain had told her made even the slightest modicum of sense. Would Pine Needle had known that too. He had no more ego to fight a war than Cadenza was only acting like any good soldier would. There was no Casus Belli on either side, and Equestria was acting apparently paranoid, ordering defensive measures, preparing for an attack even though no other nation on the continent, nor indeed even any combination of nations, except perhaps if every single one worked together, could challenge it. Corona had acted much the same. In her final days before exile, Corona had been utterly paranoid of Equestria being invaded, had intended to relocate hundreds of thousands of ponies from the Equestrian frontiers to the interior to protect them. But on the other hoof, Corona had, at least at the time, had the large and powerful Griffin Empire to contend with. But the Empire had gone 7 centuries now, the last emperor of all the Griffin having died without an heir. Civil war had reduced the once mighty nation to a collection of squabbling kingdoms more concerned with their own gratification. Luna had gone mad. There was no impetus, no reason. Venza was amongst the Cavalians now, who were looking at her expectantly. She stared back at them, blinking a few times. Cavalia will not win a war with Equestria, not even Equestria stretching itself dangerously thin by attacking all its neighbors. But what could she tell these ponies to do? To simply let their homelands be conquered? Though the ethereal sense that her cutie mark granted her, she could feel the love that her citizen soldiers had for the land beneath their hooves. The nation of Cavalia, she would not simply tell them to back down. They would ignore her. The Alicorn turned back to the bridge, horn glowing bright blue. A matching aura traced its way around the Cavalian half of the bridge, advancing up its length and rooting itself firmly into its stonework. With a twitch of her head, the Cavalian half of the bridge was torn loose, separated from the Equestrian side. As the Equestrians and Cavalians both looked on, Cadenza brought the bridge over to the Cavalian bank, laying it down on its side before turning back to her ponies. The Equestrians, she told them, claim they are preparing for defensive war only. Whatever reason, they think we mean to invade them. And they are mistaken, and the captain of Equestrian forces over there, Pine Needle, has expressed no desire to begin a war. If they are telling the truth, if they fear Cavalian invasion, then this should actuate their fears. Cadenza looked to each of the gathered ponies before her. I must fly to Counterlot, she said. Something is wrong here. Very wrong. And I must learn what. Do not do anything to antagonize the Equestrians until I return. There will be no war while I yet draw breath. It wasn't much of a speech, and it was hardly the great rallying call that these reservists needed. She received applause, but only because she was the princess. They were too afraid of her to cheer. With a grimace, Cadenza turned around, flapping her wings a few times and landing on the thin air, where the bridge now gave out. Pineda was standing there, apparently having anticipated her return. He was looking down at the river beneath him, and when Cadenza landed, having heaved a sigh of relief. Thank you, princess, he said. If war were to break out, regardless of its nature, I would have it secure both sides of the bridge. Now, as long as I'm expected to be on defense, I will not have to. He looked up at her. I have no desire to attack all ponies and foals. And I have no desire to attack you, Cadenza said. Captain, you are disregarding my expertise, and you are right. Under the circumstances, you should do so. In that case, I approach you now as the Princess Cavalia, and ask permission to cross the border into Equestria, that I might go to Canterlot and speak with your princess. Pineda looked hard at Cadenza for several long moments. Permission granted, he said at length, inclining his head, on one condition. And that is, find out when Tartarus is going on. Once before, Cadenza had flown by herself over the skies of Equestria. There she had been entering with a heart full of hope and wonder, and a belief that she would soon share stone with Luna, as she had also believed at the time that she was Celestia reborn. Then she had flown at a comparatively leisurely pace, and as soon as she had wanted to take the time to mentally prepare herself from serving her soon-to-be Diarchy. In spite of herself, Cadenza couldn't help but smile at the memory. It was hard to believe that she had ever been that pony. But again, having suddenly gone from being a simple earth pony to an alicorn, when most would have received their cutie marks, could she really be blamed for making such assumptions? Cadenza held onto that emotion of bemusement for as long as possible. She did not know what awaited her in the Canterlot, but she doubted it would be very amusing. The bemusement was lost on her mind, however. She was flying at supersonic speeds, exceeding even those that of the carried her from Rome to the river Burgalia. Canterlot was more than 3 times that distance. By the time the tall peak of the Canterhorn and the rocky plateau that Canterlot sat upon had come into view, it was several hours past noon, the sun now descending through the sky. Cadenza did not want to look like she was invading. Several hours of flying alone with her thoughts had not been good for her panic. Her worry that waiting for her in Canterlot would be a corrupted, insane Luna. Would Cadenza be able to challenge such a being? Well, for alicorns, it was true, but Cadenza was not yet even a millennia old. While Luna, on the other hand, had forgotten her exact age. Luna moved the sun and moon and was a being of unspeakable power. Cadenza was certainly a league above most, if not all, unicorn mages and Pegasi weathermakers, and with endurance exceeding that of any earth pony. She had personally defended Cavalia on occasion from the Og-Road sea serpent, or ornery star beast that was beyond the ability of Cavalians themselves to safely deal with. But Luna was a step beyond her. Nonetheless, Cadenza fought against her pure instinct, to crash in through the throne room's windows and begin the battle immediately. Surprise being the only advantage she would have over Luna, instead came to a landing within the courtyard of Ketchelot Castle at a reasonable speed, resolving to at least give Luna a chance to defend her actions. She wasn't immediately noticed. Ponies were dashing around everywhere already, moving with determination and more than a little panic in their eyes. The air was already thick with Pegasi, and there was enough commotion that the night guard of Ketchelot Castle had not even noticed her arrival. That was not a good sign, nor were the dark storm clouds floating over the castle and only the castle. Cadenza's special talent may have been love, but she could, with a degree of willpower, begin her senses to other emotions as well. And the only emotion she felt now was panic. Cadenza grimaced. This did not bode well as she strode through the castle, looking left and right. Several ponies acknowledged her with a nod, but none stopped her as she moved until she reached the outer doors of the throne room itself. Here, at least, she was finally acknowledged. Two night guards snapping to attention at her appearance. "Exert Cadenza, one," an earth pony exclaimed. Cadenza vaguely recognized him, though she could not recall his name. He must have been serving as part of Luna's escort when she had last visited Cavalia. "We were not told you're coming." Cadenza looked between the two night guards. "My visit is a surprise to myself as well," she said. "I would speak to Princess Luna now concerning a grave matter." The two night guards standing outside the throne room looked between each other, each grimacing awkwardly. Now is not a good time. Cadenza scowled. She wrapped magic around her throat. "I have broken sound in twain in my haste to come here," she proclaimed, amplifying her voice many times over, making her sound as though she was many ponies speaking at once. She further made her point from glow with crystalline, angry red light. She didn't like doing this particular trick, but she had to admit that it certainly tended to make her point when she needed to play the part of eloquent wrath rather than state's pony. Her surprise would not be ruined either. She knew that when the doors of the throne room were shut, it was entirely soundproofed. "On the border of my land, an Equestria army stands poised to invade. I would have words with your princess on this matter. You cannot impair my progress. I suggest you instead aid it." The two night guards grimaced further. They did not appear intimidated by Cadenza. Much, anyway. But both reacted to her mention of army. Considering for several moments, the two nodded almost as one, and opened the door to the throne room. Cadenza had been in it before, of course. It was carved from marble and granite, supported by tall pillars with the ancient laws of Equestria inscribed into their surfaces, illuminated by stained glass windows that depicted great and heroic events in its history. A deep purple carpet ran down its length, eventually reaching a raised dais upon which sat the throne of Princess Luna, wrought from silver and obsidian and surrounded by flowing pools of water. What Cadenza did not know to expect was the state of Luna. Would she be sitting there, waiting for her? Would there be some crisis that Cadenza was not aware of? Some logical reason for the armies of Equestria preparing for imminent invasion? Or would Cadenza instead find a dark tyrant, a black-twinned tyrant son, waiting for her, ranting and raving in paranoid and delusion? Certainly, Cadenza did not expect to find Luna on the throne, but instead standing among two ponies and a griffin. A look on her face not of concern, but exasperation more than a touch of embarrassment. That the two ponies and griffin appeared to be shouting both at Luna and each other was a surprise as well. "Oh, totally unacceptable," concluded one of the ponies, his equestrian thick with Pyrrhica accent. "Will not stand for this," finished the second pony at the same time, her own Axis Stallion. Similar to Cadenza's own lit, she imagined, though somewhat more nasal. "Think that the kingdoms are simple, whatever. You have another thing coming," apprehended the griffin. His own accent was not at all dissimilar to the predictor's. Luna looked about, ready to respond, when she noticed that the doors were thrown. The throne room had been opened. Her eyes went at the sight of even as one of the night guards strode just in front of Cadenza. "Majesty," he announced loudly, "your exarch, Princess Cadenza, insists on seeing you concerning..." He trailed off for a moment in nervousness before continuing. "Is suspected relates to the matter. Who, Majesty?" "She can write!" the griffin excited loudly, beating his room several times. "Princess, it is trying enough that the noble griffin kingdom must play along these two." I beg your pardon," the two ponies demanded at once, "but I will not put the security of the kingdoms on hold that you might treat with your vassal." Cadenza's own whined with that. Her wings flaring. "Miss Cosy?" she demanded, forgetting her question for a minute as she trotted forward. "Cavalier, no te quedas." "Sort of is," Zalian observed, tapping her hoofs together. Apparently she understood Cavalian. "I think the situation has always been very confusing to me." Luna rolled her eyes slightly, taking a few steps toward Cadence. "Please, Cadence," she said, her voice strained. "Whatever the situation is, we'll have to wait a moment. There's something of a crisis right now, thanks to..." "Something of a crisis?" the Peter echoed. "You got three Equestrian legions about something of a crisis?" Luna looked to him, raising her hoof. "It is a serious crisis, Ambassador. It is was merely a turn of phrase. Unimportant! The griffin exclaimed angrily, beating his wings as he took to the air and pointed one claw at Luna. You meticulous, petty, and broken princess! Kingdoms will not against your question evasion. Mock my words. As I've been trying to explain to you, Master, a question is not just because you're a Calicorn. You cannot go presume to store this around, Peter shouted. Ambassador, I'm not starting to use my own personal abilities as Saudi has never recognized your blatant annexation of Ladio. And now you're seeking to turn us into a vassal as well, as Saudi explained. Luna grimaced and looked at Condensa. As you can see, she said, waving her hoof in front to indicate the three ambassadors, there was an incident while I slept. Cadenza blinked a few times. She said she didn't really know what to say. The ambassadors weren't entirely surprised, but Luna, not rebuking their attitudes or anger in any way, was. She seemed like a pony intent on conquering the world, which made the situation all the more confusing. Just that there's a number of equestrian troops on the Cavalli's border as well. Luna stared at her. So for that matter, did the three ambassadors in the room? What? Luna asked. The Griffin ambassador recovered second, swiftly flying over to Condensa's side and landing beside her. Ha! He exclaimed. Not we have an Aliquan on our side to aid us! What? Was Cadenza and Luna demanded at the same time? Even as the two Alicorns stared at each other in confusion, the other two ambassadors joined Cadenza. Yes! She and the Predator exclaimed. Yes! We do! You know the fronts against a Christian imperialism! What? An alliance of the agreed, the Zodian said, throwing one hoof over Cadenza's withers and what was probably supposed to be a camaraderie. I see now. He feared how close Zodia and Cavalli had come just over the past 10 years. Reconciliation efforts that Cadenza herself has supported. What? Based on what, huh? You know we are? As what? Wait. Cadenza demanded, flaring her wings in order to get the Zodian ambassador off her. She cantered away several paces towards Luna. Wait. Pause. Wait. A longer pause. As the younger Alicorn's head whipped between Luna and the three ambassadors. I feel I'm missing some context here. The doors to the throne room opened again. Your Majesty! A tall, powerful-built Earthpony with a steel greatcoat, wearing the armor of the captain of the guard, Cancelar Guard, said as she entered the throne room, shoving a much shorter green Earthpony in front of her. Your Majesty! Here's quick fix. He was hiding in the wine cellar. I sympathize. Luna muttered under her breath, low enough that only Condensa could hear it, and not only due to her Alicorn senses. Quick Fix was a small, squirrely-looking Earth pony, wearing a vest festooned with silver buttons. On finding himself in the throne room, he straightened his vest, looked to the ambassadors, to Cadenza, to Luna, and on seeing his princess, turned and tried to flee. The captain of guard stopped him with one outstretched hoof, shoving him forward again, where he was quickly wrapped in a dark blue glow of Luna's telekinesis and brought forward, past the ambassadors, past Cadenza, and to right in front of Luna, who was doing a very good job of containing what looked at, and to Cadenza's felt like a significant amount of anger. Ambassadors? Luna said, turning Quick Fix around to face the two ponies. One Alicorn and one Griffin. Princess Cadenza. This is Quick Fix. Major Domo of Canterlot Castle. A glorified butler, the Zodian demanded. Cadenza coughed. Equestria, she observed, a significant amount of power has devolved on the position of Major Domo over the centuries. Oh. Luna observed, nodding. That will be changing. Yes, Quick Fix. Earlier today when I woke up, you explained your brilliant and master stratagem to me. Please explain it to the ambassadors and princess. Quick Fix fidgeted. He observed. His voice was high, though Cadenza suspected that Monsieur panicked. Yes, well, you see, Princess Luna, that is, she values actions speak louder than words, right? Hey, the princess can't be reached up in a room except by teleporting or flying. Not even then, most of the time, since she seals it off. So, really, this seemed like a good idea. Say, actions speak louder than words. And I thought actions seemed like a good idea to show the princess that this was a bad idea. I mean, well, now that I think about it, I had a problem with 1,000 years. But it might be right. No. So I sort of a bit too realism. Staged a coup while she was sleeping to show that. Oh, what? Cadenza demanded. Luna rolled her eyes as a major domo saw him. A coup The yacht, she explained. Quick Fix here apparently decided that in order to convince me to have stairs leading to my chamber, he should stage a false coup. There were several long moments of silence at that. Even the mortals in this room thought that it went on for a noticeable length of time. And it had to be believable, Quick Fix exclaimed. So, I dropped the defensive modus. Defensive! No evasion. Orders for the army. Told them to defend with Peterick, the Perfect Kingdom, Sandalia, and Caballeria. Cadenza corrected automatically. Even as she did, she felt a sinking feeling in her stomach. A sinking feeling that was confirmed by the odd look that Quick Fix gave her. An odd look that swiftly rose to one of horrified realization. Oh. I'm a host of renowned order Cavalli instead of Cavalleria. Silly. It's just how the dog. Glass came when Luna used her hoof to smack Quick Fix over the back of his head. Given the strength contained in that hoof, it was a testament to Luna's restraint that she only sent him stumbling silently. I don't believe this, the Pediatrician said. This solo sort of result of this long book is idiot. The condoms are elected High King in panic over this. Griffin demanded. He's starting to border over nothing, Zadian exclaimed. The Griffin beat his wings, taken to the air. Two ponies each raised their hoofs, getting ready to gesticulate profusely as they prepared to shout. Each was about to demand reparations and Quick Fix blood. Ha! Cadenza boarded. The three ambassadors, Princess and Major Domo, looked at Cadenza, who had her front hooves covering her mouth. She made it only a few more moments before her laughter came bursting forth. This time, her hooves were not enough. Luna had gone mad. Luna hadn't gone mad. Cavalli wasn't in any danger. Cadenza would not have to do battle with ancient Eichhorn. It was all the result of a tremendous act of stupidity, or the most mundane, most banal thing as possible. That was hilarious. Her left forced her to the floor, one hoof clutching her already aching side as the other pounded the granite beneath her. She was vaguely aware of the ambassadors commanding that she stop, but the seriousness with which they were treating the situation only made her laugh harder. She was also conscious of being hefted by two night guards, who carried her hysterical form between the two of them. Probably Aunt Luna's orders to take her someplace where she can calm down. With tear-filled eyes, she was constantly being placed in a side room, where she could laugh, chortle, guffaw, and otherwise howl to her own content. And she did. That, Luna said many hours later, was the worst day I've had in centuries. Cadenza looked at the goblet in Luna's telekinetic grip. It had previously been filled with something red. Now it only held a food drops. From the slightest glaze to Luna's eyes, it wasn't her first goblet either. Cadenza looked at Luna with a somewhat worried expression. Luna matched it even as her own glowed and the cup began to magically refill itself. Last one, she promised, putting a hoof to her chest. Last one, I swear. Cadenza considered and decided that with a question nearly ended up at war not once, with not one, not two, not three, but 4 nations today, Luna was fully entitled to something to try and steady her nerves. She conjured her own goblet. I'm more bothered by the fact you did not wait for me, she said, feeling herself, putting the goblet just below her muzzle before taking it itself. Magically, she created, it may have been, but it was also the precise replica of the wine her adopted family used to create. 700 years ago. The vineyard still existed, of course, but time and tide had changed the flavor over the centuries. What was in her goblet now was the wine she'd grown up making and drinking herself, a vintage only she could produce. Luna nodded a few times at that, before holding her goblet forward. To a close call, she toasted. Cadenza tapped her own goblet to Luna's, before each took a swig. To Luna's credit, she took only a measured sip, apparently wanting her last goblet the last. The two of them were in the balcony room of Canterlot Castle, located in the tallest tower just below Judith's chambers, and Celestia's, though they had gone unused in centuries, of course. The floor beneath them had a detailed map of Equestria on the floor, and an even more intricate star chart on the ceiling, and possessed a trio of balconies looking north, east, and west. The two Alicorns sat at the northern balcony, looking out at Luna's moon as it neared its zenith to the sky, and the multitude of constellations that adorned the sky. So, Luna said, disturbing the silence, the Griffins wanted a demilitarized zone between equestrian kingdoms. They wanted some provinces too, but I talked them out of it. I don't know how. I managed to convince them to accept the skyscraper peaks at the zone. Ponies don't go there anyway, except the Crystal Empire. Crystal ponies live there. She breathed out a long breath from her news. No army at their border. Thank goodness. I just got them to start trusting again. And Peter runs. She grimaced. I can't remember. Written some down somewhere. I know. Reasonable enough. Their democracy. Just wait 50 years, 100 years. I forget all about this wonderful thing, democracies. Cadenza nodded. Luna was mostly talking for the sake of talking right now. She knew. What about Zaldia? She asked. Luna shook her head. Nothing. Just angry. I'm sorry, Cadence. I think I may have made things difficult for you. These Zaldias might want a buffer. Might think that we're out to get them. I'm sorry. Cadenza shifted uncomfortably, and not just from Luna's attitude. That she placated was by stretching out a wing, putting it around Luna. Luna responded with another drink of wine. No, what made Cadenza uncomfortable was the feeling that she got off of Luna when she spoke. When she apologized, and the fact that she had once again called her Cadence. After 7 centuries, Luna could still not get her name right. Not wholly, instead preferring the equestrian translation of it. Cadenza had some suspicions of why that was. The suspicions tied from the feelings that came pouring out of Luna whenever she let herself become vulnerable. Two feelings in particular: regret and love. Love enough to drown the burning sun and warm the cold moon. She drank from her own goblet of wine. One night, she might work up the courage to ask Luna about that love, to see if her suspicions were true, i.e., that Luna is her mom. But not this night. Luna had enough on her plate right now and didn't need any added burdens. Cadenza instead straightened herself. Well, she said, having placated the Griffins and Pufric and the Zaldians, I suppose that leaves one aggravated nation, Cavalia. As his princess, I feel I also must settle matters between the Principality of Equestria and the Empire of Cavalia. Luna looked to her. Even over a slightly inebriated state, she noted the gleam to Cadence's eye. The fact that Cadenza, despite her tone, was not taking her stance very seriously. She sat up straight herself, taking on as regal a pose as was possible for her at the moment. Very well, Princess Cadence, she said, apparently choosing to ignore that technicality. She was the Empress of Cavalia, and the Princess of International Peace. What can Equestria do to placate your nation? Cadenza smiled. It's awesome stairs to your room. So that is an awkward day. So basically, this was something the whole stairs scoop I think was like implied, like referenced like several stories across season one, similar to the ice palace that Trixie is constantly parading. It's like I said, you did this. Did you do an ice palace? Oh, it's the ice palace. And I think this story is good. It's very long, but it's not. I mean, my issue is that it builds up to one joke. The joke. Don't get me wrong. The joke is really good because it's built up to like the most nonsensical thing ever. It's like you had about 1,000,000 troops lined up across the border because your major domo, yes, wanted you to build stairs so they can bother you in case of an emergency. Yes. Why did you build stairs? I don't know. It seemed like only bothering me with light or magic would be make sense. What if the person has to get you his Earth pony? Shit. Yeah, that is. I would say there's only like one grammar error. I already mentioned it. On a scale of 1 to 5, I give this a 4. It's a good story. I do like the joke at the end because that's ultimately what the story leads up to. But that's I don't think that's enough to label it a comedy, despite how good the joke is. That's just me. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about Awkward Day. This has been Dark Symphony 777, and cut.